Get me in focus, boy. Looking good?
Speaking to the mic, boy.
Looking at the camera. I can do the Chobody G smouldering.
The who?
Chobody G smouldering.
I don't know who that is.
You know who Chobody G is?
No, I don't. Why would I know who that is?
Intro. Just clip this. Put
Doesn't
it out
need to clip
on
it.
social.
Just leave it at the start.
Everybody who is watching this, please tag James with your favourite Chobody G skit, graphic, GIF, whatever. Just tag at Planet FPL Pod on Twitter, and let's introduce James to the world of Chobody G.
I'll just mute his name.
Just, spell it incorrectly, mix it up. Come on, listeners, you have the skill to do it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name's James.
Want a title for the pod?
I took a -4 for Chobody G. I don't know.
Normal service has been resumed.
Oh, no, I think the title of the pod is Tripped Up Again, mate.
Yes,
That's aimed at me, not at Suj.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I didn't have Kieran Trippier, and I didn't have any Newcastle, and that was the equivalent, I think, of about 500,000 places, if I'm honest with you.
I saw a few people who got smashed so badly on Sunday were dropping from like 500k to like 2.5 million and stuff like that.
That's a very big drop.
It was, last week, how many minutes into the pod before Suj said it's a bad week, a good week to have a bad week? Well, what was this one? This was a bad week to have a bad week.
Yeah, I mean, 77 I scored, which I thought was looking pretty decent, but like 900k to 800k. But at some point, I think I'd peaked out at like 350 before the Newcastle game. So that's quite a big drop off. But at the end of the day, when you look at any given game week, if you get a green arrow, I don't think you should complain. You should just kind of move on from there. And also it's down to like, what did you do to your team to improve it longer term?
So what did you do, Suj?
Because, just before I get into that, because obviously some people wildcarded into real shit shows.
Yeah.
Shout out to Baker, Adam, those boys on that.
Didn't they have all the Newcastle defensive,
in
though?
the end, they did,
think,
yes.
yeah.
But at some point, he was like 20, 30 points down. So
we know that because he specifically tagged us and told us.
It's how it ends. This is a game about how it ends at game week 38, not how it starts or how it's going in the middle. I only made one move.
That, by the way, is a perfect example. Does my head in every week. I'm on this with 4 to go, and the game week is never over until the final game is done.
A lot. Yes, indeed. I just made one change. I got rid of the injured Martinelli for Diaby. Simple, boring move. Just sets me up for when Villa go into a good run. And I thought they'd win at Chelsea as well. I wanted to buy Ward-Prowse, if I'm honest with you, but it just didn't seem right before Liverpool away. And I've basically earmarked that move for this week. When we have Sheffield United, even more so after what happened with the Newcastle-Sheffield United game. So ended up with just that. My midfield looking tasty this week, James. Foden, Saka, Mitoma, Maddison, brackets Diaby. I think that this Foden, Alvarez, Haaland's amazing because the week that Alvarez became flavour of the month was the week that Foden cashed in and Doku was second. Everyone was ignoring Foden, but I did say I thought it might be Foden time because they mix it up and share it around, right? If you look at every week, if it's not Haaland, it's Alvarez. If it's not Alvarez, it's Foden. If it's not Foden, it's back to Haaland. And between the three of them, like Alvarez didn't return this week, Foden 11 points. 12 points between them, 6 each, which I was like, every week, if they give me 6 each between them consistently for that price, you can't argue. And every now and then, they'll go big. And looking at the game state, like they could have gone bigger had Rodri not turned into a bit of a idiot. Yes.
And because it was similar instance,
WWE.
Casemiro's red card last year, that's why I said that.
Yeah. Like of all the weird things to want to attack someone, like grabbing their throat, I don't know. But
best theory I've heard is, because Rodri's not the sort, we know he's very good at his tactical fouls and stuff, but he's not one to normally lose his rag. Best theory I heard from losing his rag was Morgan Gibbs-White's moustache.
It's quite offensive. But yeah, all in all, 77. I'll take it and move on. Like, I don't really have any particular problems. Onana finally returned, first time since game week 1 that he's come back with any sort of points. Estupinan and Mitoma done the business. I'm happy with Maddison there. What's the prognosis on his knock?
The word last night was he's hopeful of playing on Saturday. I have a little bit of concern in the sense that anyone who saw the incident would have flinched seeing it, because the angle his leg ended up in was not good, and you thought, oh, it's potentially another ACL. Then obviously he's carried on for probably a good sort of 10 minutes after that. We don't know, man. Could just be the adrenaline and stuff. That's not to say he's done his ACL, almost definitely not, and clearly would probably know that by now. But I wouldn't be certain of his involvement on Saturday. Tottenham will need him. But yeah, we should be all right. We should be all right.
I'm set this week. I may even roll this week, James, to be honest with you.
You just said you were buying James Ward-Prowse.
No, I was
really looking forward to hearing which one of your midfielders you'd be selling for him.
This is it, right? It'd be Mitoma, if anybody, with Aston Villa, Liverpool, City in the next 3. Yep. It would be Mitoma unless we had news that like James Ward-Prowse, Maddison, the other James, is out for a little while, and that's an easy move for me. I'll be playing Onana again, Crystal Palace at home. It's a home fixture, fine. I'll be playing Kabore with the double. He's my only doubler. Fulham away for Chilwell is there. If I decide not to go Ward-Prowse, I might just get rid of Chilwell, but I'll see. He did come on for half a game.
You would think, judging by what they did on Sunday, that Disasai will play right back, Cole will move into left-sided centre-back, and Chilwell will play left-back.
It's not desperate to move him on.
But
the Arsenal boys got a good game. The City boys have got a good game. Wolves away. And then the Abbeys at home to Brighton.
Any consciousness on... you've obviously got 5 City and Arsenal there, obviously playing each other in game week 8. Consciousness on that? I've also got 5, by the way. May
even pull out the wild card. The only thing is, when you have teams going against each other, when you talk about an all-in strategy, well, other than Saliba, it's an all-in attack strategy. So it's less relevant for me because they're all attackers. Same. If I had defence against defence, then it's a slightly different question.
Who's your other defenders? You got Kabore, Chilwell, Saliba, and Estupinan.
I want to dance with
Udogie.
Yes.
So Udogie you would definitely play at Luton. That's 100%.
Yes.
Chilwell's going to be dependent on if he's in the team.
Yep.
Kabore is probably going to be dependent on how you feel after the double. You're not going to want to play Saliba, and your other one is Estupinan, who's got Liverpool at home.
Bench him.
I think you'd play him.
At home. Yeah, true, maybe. Yeah. I think there's every chance that Chilwell will be gone. The others are staying in my team for a little while. Chilwell, Mitoma, still on the chopping block. But, these are very straightforward, simple decisions. I don't feel like I'm doing anything particularly revolutionary. I mean, look, Newcastle tearing Sheffield United a new one 8-0 is not going to happen every week.
Do you know who Sheffield United's best player was? By distance.
You're going to pick a Newcastle player?
No, who was Sheffield United's best player by distance?
Hammer? The goalkeeper?
The goalkeeper.
Yeah. I think I deserve a little bit of credit, though, James, because I did buy Sven Botman in game week 3. So I went earlier than everybody else on Sven Botman, other than the people that started the season.
What week did you sell him in?
5. And I never played him once in that entire time.
Is that right?
I bought and sold Sven Botman this season, never played him.
Now he's hold. That's a good one.
Now he's hold. Yes. Everybody's going to have a story like that where they've got a player in. Obviously, he picks up a knock, right? And I'd bought him then for now. Looking back at it, the decision I had to make on Botman was, do I sell Chilwell for Udogie or Botman for Udogie before you guys played Sheffield United? And ended up, the talk at the time was Chilwell's playing so attacking. He's playing as a left-sided winger. So why would I sell him over selling Botman? And it was still a few weeks before the run for Newcastle. So it was the right decision, I think, to get rid of... Well, it wasn't the right decision, but in decision-making, like, I'm fairly comfortable keeping Chilwell at that time.
You weren't going to know that Chilwell was coming out the team at that point.
No, definitely not. Or that Botman was going to score goals as he has or picked up the points that he did. Interestingly, though, I have more than enough money to turn Chilwell into Trippier if I decide that that's my Newcastle defender to go to rather than Sven Botman moving forward. Interesting.
The consciousness on Trippier has to be the same thing. I think even those who are on wild card now are probably finding similar to put a team together that's got like Haaland, Son, Saka, Salah together is quite tough. And that's without Trippier. So the consciousness on Trippier, I think I summed it up fairly well at the weekend by saying, look, he'll probably be the highest scoring defender over the next few weeks. And I think we'd probably already look at that and say, yes, but 2 points. One, is he worth the 2 million more over a Botman? Well, Botman scored at the weekend as well, so it's 6 points more, but Botman owners would be pretty happy. And you just have to be conscious of, if it's Trippier is your decision and you really want to get to Mo Salah in a couple of weeks and you're still sitting there with the likes of Haaland, Saka and Son, for example, how are you going to make that happen? And that's all. And making the choice on the Botman would have made people's lives a lot easier. So for you, yes, Chilwell to Trippier this week on the face of it, yeah, crack on, absolutely fine.
Where do I get Salah? That's always Salah is the big cloud that I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get to him. So that's still a conversation to be had. I just think it's interesting. Last couple of weeks in a row now, and it's quite common. Most transferred in Alvarez. Who was the most transferred in the week before, or flavour of the week?
It's a curse.
Son. So I think you need to just be a bit wary of jumping on the next thing. And I feel like Trippier this week might be the next one that everybody jumps towards. And even like if you're looking at West Ham, like you look at that Newcastle win and you think, oh, they're playing West Ham, set-piece threat. Sheffield United are not going to want to have the repeat of what just happened last weekend, right? The first thing in their mind is going to be, right, we do not get embarrassed or humiliated again like we did. So they're going to work even harder to make it more difficult for West Ham to not have that same stuff happen again. Now, it might be futile because they're not good, but it's not going to be a case of play the same way. They're going to be looking to avoid embarrassment again. It's going to make it more difficult. It's why I'm kind of like, yeah, if you offered me a 1-0 today for West Ham, I'll take it all day long. It's 3 points. It doesn't matter if you win 1-0 or 6-0.
Let me tell you that if they don't fix up on set pieces, it won't be 1-0.
Yeah. At which case, Thomas Souček is maybe a cheeky little punt for listeners. But
there's loads. Zuma, even as another one, right? Aguerd, Ward-Prowse's delivery, right?
Ward-Prowse is the one. Yeah, but interesting. How did you do, James?
Just before I do, just one point on I was just thinking about your Botman and your in and off. Perfect example in why patience can be really important in this game. How many people bought? You mentioned Heung-min Son, curse, pre-game 5. Yeah. How many would have bought? How many would have regretted, sold? Now he's gone off and probably sitting there this morning going, oh shit, I want him back again.
Yeah.
Then someone will be in that position, won't they?
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
How many points did Sonny get in the end?
14.
Yeah, so it's 5 points more than Maddison. I can stomach that. If I didn't have Maddison, it would really sting. But because I got Maddison versus Son, I think over a longer period, maybe it might even out a little bit. I'm not, that 5 points is fine for me. If I didn't have either, I'd be annoyed. But yeah, patience is definitely a virtue. Like Foden is a good example, right? He's blanked for me 3 weeks in a row before this game week.
Yep.
11-pointer.
Yep. Mitoma had a few as well. There's another one who's done really well this week.
And benched, right? So not only is he blanking, he's then benched. And my brother came over to watch West Ham Liverpool. And I hadn't seen him since the semi-final of the Conference League, actually. So quite a long time. And he's like, Mitoma's on at half-time. 1 minute later, Mitoma's scored. You're like, well, that's what he does.
Yeah, arrived in the box, really good positions. I took a -4 last Tuesday for Julian Alvarez. And I say specifically for Julian Alvarez because I couldn't do it in one move unless I sold Ollie Watkins. And I'm pleased sitting here right now that I didn't sell Ollie Watkins because that would have also been quite laughable for the game week. No forward scored more than him this week, so I'll take his 9-pointer, thank you. Left me with 6.5. And Pep had said on Tuesday, Jack Grealish is still out for another 7-10 days. And I went, do you know what? Forest and Wolves. Yeah, I'm going to punt Jeremy Doku. A real big differential, literally just for the 2 weeks. And by Wednesday afternoon, I was regretting that because Jack Grealish was back in training for Manchester City. Now, Doku obviously played, but sometimes you have game weeks, I think, as a fantasy manager, and you just know it's going to go against you. And by 4:15, on Saturday, I knew
Doku's getting
gone against me.
Sean Dyche's curly finger.
And Alvarez, 1 point for the
which
two
is
of them
a bit
each.
later, yeah.
-4 for 2 Man City players that own the Nottingham Forest 2-point return. You can't make it up, can you? So you can only laugh and smile about those sort of things. So there's a little bit debate now whether I start Doku this week or not, because I think Grealish could potentially take his place. But I think it's probably more likely Doku would play again, and Grealish will play in the Cup at Newcastle, and then they'll probably try and get Grealish right for Arsenal. But they've obviously got a problem in the middle of the pitch now with Rodri injured. Any case, had a big selection dilemma. So was it going to be leave Maddison or Watkins out? I left Maddison out. They both got 9 points. It didn't make a difference anyway. The correct decision would, of course, been to have benched Karim Mitoma, who was my highest scoring player of the week. But in terms of the fact of not starting, that would have been the right decision, right?
Yeah.
So 14 points for Mitoma. I got 13 for Saka, 6 for Estupinan, 8 for Sam Johnson, 9 for Ollie Watkins. You look at the week and you think, that's not terrible. Throwing Malo Gusto's -2 for a laugh.
Ouch.
I benched Ben Chilwell, correct decision. But absolutely,
more than Gusto.
destroyed by the Newcastle defensive assets.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroyed. Anyone who went double, I mean, not anyone, but anyone who went double got at least sort of probably 18, with sort of Botman and Cher, for example, as a worst case. So there's obviously plenty out there. I've got like 30 from their double Newcastle. And of course, we can be hindsight about it. Trippier was worth the -4, wasn't he? Oh, don't take -4 for a defender yet. Listen, he ain't going to rock up 18 points every week. He's also not going to play Sheffield United every week. So this week, I sat down Sunday night. I obviously hadn't drunk because I'd had Harry, and the draw was helpful in terms of my mental state Sunday night. But having obviously watched the 2 games, I knew that there was things that I wanted to change. In my mind, going into the weekend, I'd said that my intended transfer would have been Ben Chilwell to Charlie Taylor as the most likely, is what I'd said on Saturday morning, because Charlie Taylor's dipped to 3.9. And he's got the double coming up, fine. And looking longer term, Burnley rotating quite well, actually. Their fixtures get really nice from sort of game week 10 onwards. And I'd come convinced from what I saw on Saturday night that it will stay in the team, having started the last 2. They built up in the 2-3 structure, and Charlie Taylor kind of inverted from left back, and I don't see anyone else in the squad profile for Burnley would be able to do that if they want to play in the same way. So I'm looking at Charlie Taylor 3.9 and thinking, yep, short, longer term, that's playing the double, decent cover. There's things I've looked at, like when Udogie goes to Man City, Charlie Taylor's got Sheffield United at home. Looking further ahead and thinking stuff like that might be quite useful for someone like me who's probably not going to wildcard in the next coming weeks. The problem that threw the plans was Gusto getting sent off, because for me, I needed to play Gusto in the next 2 weeks and was pretty confident that he'd stay in the team for the next 2. Then he himself was just going to sit there as a kind of a nothing player for me or a move on. So I had to deal with that problem, because suddenly I'm looking at things like Saliba against Man City, having to play Estupinan against Man City the week after, and you're going, this is getting quite ugly. And you can be stubborn about it, or you can look about it and go, well, the best solution here is Newcastle, isn't it? In terms of getting me a player that I need to play every week for the next 3 or 4. So I sold Ben Chilwell for Sven Botman. And
to avoid the price rise?
I did it on Sunday night. Yeah, so Chilwell avoided the drop, got Botman's rise, but the bigger one for me was, again, based on what I saw Saturday night, was that I needed to get Marcus Rashford out of my team. Because seen enough. I don't care that he's XG in the game might have been sort of 0.48 and not bad. That's fine. He's one of them, Rashford, where I make this mistake a lot as a fantasy manager. The fixtures are good, the fixtures are good, the fixtures are good. Meanwhile, everybody else around him and at cheaper is smashing it. And Sonny, I'm really convinced now, probably does stay through the middle. That was get that done for me. Liverpool's a good fixture for him. It's a tough fixture for Tottenham, but it's a good fixture for Heung-min Son. So I had 0 in the bank. So Rashford to Son wasn't going to be on. The Gusto problem meant that I didn't need to look down to Charlie Taylor, because that wasn't going to help me in forthcoming weeks, where suddenly I'd have been looking at playing Taylor most of the weeks. And again, their fixture run doesn't turn great, bar the double, until sort of you get into the double-digit game weeks. So I bought Botman and Son Sunday night, took the rises of both, skipped the Chilwell drop, or skipped the Rashford drop. And so, if you want a player to buy this week, kids, Marcus Rashford's your guy, because we know how this works. And the thing is, when you sell a player like that, you know that he's going to get returns, right, at certain points. He's got 4 goals in his last 17 Premier League games. It's enough for me. That form from February that lingers when he had that brilliant period, December, January, February, to be totally honest, in terms of his goal scoring returns, he's long gone. He's not at it. I've watched the majority of Manchester United games this season. He's not at it. And Sonny, if I didn't get this week, again, he's going to play through the middle against Liverpool as long as he's fit. I don't have much doubt about that. And there's going to be an absolutely monstrous surge for him to get him before Luton and Fulham in the 2 after that. So I've dealt with that now, and Sonny's in. And now I have a big selection headache for this week as well. So do I bench Maddison at home to Liverpool, Mitoma at Villa, or Doku at Wolves? Now I've got Carabao Cup games to negotiate this game week, and it might be that I get someone injured this week, and therefore it makes the decision for me. It's also another reason why I was really comfortable to take this -4 early, is that, sure, I've got a selection headache, but currently I've got the team bust with Doku and Estupiñán on the bench. So I've got good cover this week if something goes wrong between now. Say Maddison is unavailable, it's fine. I'd still want him the week after, and I've got good cover this week.
How are you getting Salah?
The chances are at the moment that I won't.
Just go without him for that entire period.
So despite saying, if you get Trippier, you might not end up with Salah, I might not be going Trippier or Salah. I'm leaving it open in my mind. There's ways of doing it. One, regrettably, might be from Saka in 9 itself. But I don't think so. I just think that the closer it gets, the more I'd look at having midfielders like Saka, Son, Maddison, all at a bit cheaper. I'd like to add Diaby, who you've already gone in on. We agreed Friday morning that was the best move for you, by the way.
That was the most boring move as well.
No, but it was the right move because he's going to keep getting investment, and it's one less thing. When other people are looking to get him the next couple of weeks, you've already got him in and in place. So he's another one I'd like to add. Then it's a case of making a final decision of dropping down midfield and forward, 4.5. Can I negotiate the money? Yes, possibly. But I think I'd probably need one of the big 3 for me, if you will, Saka, Son or Haaland, I think, to actually get injured. Or I'd make the choice in Game Week 9 to do what my original thought process was and bin Haaland and get Núñez and flip one of the midfielders to Salah and go down that route. And I might. But the more I look at it, the more I think personally I'm going to let it go. And again, don't do what I do, right? I wouldn't advise anyone to want to go without Mo Salah for Everton at home, Forest at home, Luton away. I'm aware. But I also think I'm comfortable enough still either captain Haaland when I want to, such as Brighton at home in 9. You know, Brighton will give up chances, right? There's no doubt about it. That's fine. In things like Game Week 10, the following week, when Haaland goes to Manchester United, I might still captain him. I've got that lingering haunt in my mind about Salah's own hat-trick at Old Trafford when I said, well, man won't get a hat-trick on Sunday. Yes, he did. And let's not pretend that... I mean, if United played City with Lindelof and Johnny Evans at the back, which they won't, I'd go into that captain Haaland. And I've got Saka at home with Sheffield United. I've got Son now away to Luton in Game Week 8. And so you start looking at it and going, right, that's nearly covering off Salah's really good fixtures. The last one in 11, when he goes to Luton... Haaland's got Bournemouth at home. So that's the worst bit of the Liverpool 3 covered.
Yep.
And it might be I end up with none of them.
It's
despite the fact they're doing really well.
I just think, right now, every week, there's going to be a week where you don't have one of the bigger players that goes off. And not only that, it's going to be difficult to get to. So you're just going to have to take it on the chin, right? You just can't, like the Pokemon, got to catch them all. You just can't, right?
Yeah.
It's not possible.
I think the weeks when I would like to really kind of take Haaland on from the captaincy, I'd be quite happy sticking it on Saka or Son.
Yeah. I mean, Saka's been is the highest scoring midfielder in the game so far, 6 weeks in, and he has been consistent as you like. So
we had a really good chat on Clash of Correspondence yesterday about Saka, and I asked a little bit of a cheeky question to Adam in terms of if he thought Saka was being misused by Arsenal. In the sense of he never gets a break.
Yep.
And he's probably not going to get one. So you look at things like that, Sheffield United at home, and think, wow, you could give him a rest. They probably won't. And in Tottenham's case, obviously, as well, with the no midweek fixtures at all, there's no reason to be resting the likes of Son and stuff. So, Yeah, and yet I look at the Liverpool ones with the Thursday-Sunday problem and actually think of those big pool of players, Salah might be the one that's the most likely to rock up with a rest for an easy fixture even. So, yeah, look, I'd obviously like to have him in. It's not me going, I don't want Mo Salah. It's just, I think, do you know what? I've been thinking about it too much, Suj. Trying to, am I going to go a 4.5 forward, a 4.5 midfielder, leaving open as many options as possible to be able to make that transition towards Mo Salah? And I think it's probably hampered me a little bit, thinking a little bit too far ahead rather than going, let's deal with this.
Yep.
And I've dealt with my big problems, I think, now.
Yeah, Sonny's going to be super popular. I don't doubt that coming into this run after this weekend, but including this weekend because it's a home fixture. And having seen what I've seen with Liverpool, he may have some joy. Let's talk about
it's a fixture
games.
He likes,
yeah,
Sonny. And if he's going to play through the middle, yeah. If Maddison's unavailable, I think Liverpool will beat us on Saturday. But if Maddison's available, I think it will be an amazing game, and I think it'll be high scoring.
Cool. Let's rattle through some of these games, James. Crystal Palace 0, Fulham 0. Where's Harry Wilson?
What's next on this list?
Where's Harry Wilson?
He was on the bench. Quite surprisingly, they played Bobby Decordova-Reid on the right, didn't they? Interestingly, Timothy Castagne played at right back. Anthony Robinson come back in. But I think Kenny Tete also had a problem. So Castagne's cheap price, 4.5. We know his capability from his time at Leicester is one maybe to keep an eye on. I think with Chelsea at home and Sheffield United at home in the next two, those who are looking at wild card game week 9, there's something potentially there to consider. And it might be, if you wanted to look at that, like someone said to me, right, pick a defender for the next couple. Maybe Fulham's a sort of answer, maybe, with Chelsea at home, Sheffield United. Maybe even something like Tim Ream. You know, Sheffield United set pieces again as well in game week 8, for example. So I wouldn't discount them short term. Then they have a tougher run. They come into Tottenham in game week 9. So again, if you're going to wild card in 9, they're the sort of one that might be suitable for you. Palace have altered their system a little bit in the last couple, which I think is a knock-on of Jefferson Lerma not being available, where they're concerned about the assistance Doucouré's getting in there. So Schlupp has been playing a deeper role with Hughes. It's meant Eze moving to the left, which stunts the creativity in central areas, but it's probably a little bit better for Eze because he can see the whole pitch and the picture and move into the space at appropriate times when he wants. What Palace could really do with playing Eze on that side is a really offensive left back, and they don't have it in Tyreek Mitchell. So I do a bit flat at the moment, Palace. Always an awkward, difficult team to play against. I think both these teams fall into that category at the moment. Fulham are struggling for goals. Another cheeky one might be, by the way, is Carlos Vinicius, who looked to me a couple of weeks ago was probably behind Muniz in the pecking order, behind Jimenez, but he is 4.8. He did score in the Chelsea fixture last year. If he scored in the Chelsea fixture again and then Sheffield United at home, people might be going, that's my route to Salah, for example, if you're sitting there with 3 up front. But both these teams underwhelming at the moment, really, certainly from a longer term fantasy. The likes of Anderson's fine. The goalkeepers are both okay. They both returned well. I think Palace had an XG of 0.3, I think, in the game, and Leno's got a 10-pointer. Like, you're laughing your head off at that. The two teams both combined for under 1 XG.
They're sitting there 10th and 11th in the table right now. You feel like that's just what they're going to do this season. I don't feel threatened that they're going to drop down to the bottom. Fulham more than Palace.
Both teams, it's a concern scoring goals at the moment. I know Edouard's done quite well for Palace, but I don't know any of us really sitting here thinking, he's going to maintain that and stuff. Palace will go to United this week and they'll give them a game. Fulham will certainly give Chelsea a game on Monday. It's obviously their derby. It's a really important game to them as well. But in terms of interest from fantasy, it would just be kind of goalkeepers or rotating defensively. And of course, while Johnson's kept a clean sheet against Fulham, you'd have to assume he keeps playing at the moment. I don't see Henderson coming in for him until he has a bad day.
I don't mind either. The challenge with those two goalkeepers, I mean, if you own them, hold. But for me, Turner Areola as just a setup. It just saves you a little bit of money. And if I was wildcarding, that's where I'd go.
That would be the two for me as well. Areola's fixtures are good enough longer term that you don't need to stress about it, I don't think.
And just for the record, James, his name's pronounced Monies. the Fulham striker.
Okay, Manchild, cool.
Indeed. And Vosa won't be regular. We won't even remember Manchild. He has a specific point of having Matty Cash, Raheem Sterling, and monies in his team. It doesn't help him get any points, though.
No.
He probably doesn't even spend his entire budget, even with those guys in there. Luton won, Wolves won. Despite going down to 10 men, Wolves end up taking the lead with Pedro Neto. Last week being the most chances created in the league, now getting himself on the score sheet as well.
Great goal, really powerful. You know, when Neto was at his best a few years ago, he looked like a really powerful runner when he ran with it. The goal was really powerful in terms of his running and his individualism in the moment. I think realises they're a player short. He's probably one he needs to manufacture himself, and he does really well on that.
People that have gone
it was only a 1 week thing for me if people did go there.
Yeah.
They'd City next, so you wouldn't buy this week.
No. Carlton Morris, obviously, some people may have gone early, but his ownership is still like less than 5%, mate. So not many have gone early. I think the double is interesting now, right? Because after Everton won at the weekend, now everyone's looking at it. And Burnley have been all right. Like I was keeping track of the Burnley-Man United game. They keep possession for like 60, 70%. You're looking at it now, and you're thinking, really, is it that great a double now at Everton and Burnley for Carlton Morris? Like, is it enough that I want to go there knowing that like a week later, it's just going to piss me off and I'm going to want to get rid of it? I'm avoiding the play.
Let's ask a really easy question. Everton away, Burnley at home. How many goals do you think to score?
Not more than 2. One a game. I'll give them one a game just for law of averages. Not more than 2.
Yeah, that would roughly be about the expectation, I think. And I'd arguably say more likely less than more. To be honest, I would probably my expectation right now would be they'd probably lose both games. Now, for certain people,
there's no more 0 on the league table in terms of points. Which
for certain people, buying Carlton Morris this week absolutely works. And yes, Nicholas Jackson owners, I'm looking at you. He is now officially a member of the Jackson 5 after his 5th yellow card this weekend, Suj. So I get that. And it's another one. Oh, I want to get the Salah. So Jackson and Morris is 1.5 in the bank. You can use that for something else. I get it. I absolutely get it. And if anyone wants to buy Carlton Morris this week, they absolutely have my blessing. It's just, for me, it's just an inevitable transfer out in a few weeks later. And I'm not that bothered about it. If I wanted to captain him, sure, I'd dive in now. Similarly, I'm not going to have any Luton or Burnley. I would have, as I said,
I'm going to play Kabore.
Anything you've got, you play. You've got 100%. The only ones that probably Nakamba might be, if you're sitting there like with Maddison, Mitoma, Saka, plus another one, Son, whatever, like you're going to play Nakamba over any of them, for example, if that's what you've got. Like for me, that's a no. His best case scenario is 4 points. He's so unlikely to get you anything offensively. He's more likely to pick up a yellow card or 2 and you end up with 2 or 3 points, to be totally honest. So, other than him, any W you've got, I'd play. Because I don't think the fixtures are that brilliant enough elsewhere to think, there's so many teams who are going to keep clean sheets. Obviously, if you've got a Morris, you're going to play it. In terms of captaincy, would you consider it?
Not even.
It's
not even. Haaland at Wolves.
Haaland against Wolves. And, very importantly, to spin it back to the game at the weekend, what's really, really interesting is Luton were by far the better team in the first half. Gary O'Neill said and spoke about the fact that Wolves were really poor in the first half. Luton were winning all the second balls, had all the territorial. They were much, much better than Wolves. Morris had a brilliant effort, by the way, that hit the post from distance in the first half as well. So it could have been a haul, in fact. But actually, Wolves were probably were better in terms of the second half, in terms of dealing with the problems. He's actually ended up being a really disappointing result for Luton, because for a Luton, unfortunately, to get in a position against someone that they would probably have gone into the game anyway thinking, well, this is target 3 points, to be better than them in the first half, then to end up playing against 10 men and not win the game is a blow.
Definitely at home.
In terms of the defensive players, just before we move on to see if it does need covering, I'm going to be honest with you, it's a headache.
From Luton?
Yeah. Because there's options there, right? In terms of enablers, you can go and buy it and play them this week. Last week there was a lot of questions of Anderson. I know why there was a lot of questions on Anderson, because he was the highest scoring one at that point. He might even still be because of the goal against West Ham. And I said to people, strictly as a risk. He's out the team. It's not to say he won't come back in the team. In terms of order of who's most likely to play twice, the only one I could tell you with certainty, I think, is Tom Lockyer. And you don't want to pay 4.3 for him. Then for me, in terms of the next best in terms of minutes, is Burke. That's probably boring in terms of a pick. Then it's probably Bell. That's also boring in terms of a pick. The more exciting ones are the likes of Kabore or Doty or Giles, if they play. And with the wing backs, I don't think we've got enough clarity as yet as it stands. They also changed system again. So they played more of a 3-4-3 in this fixture with Lokonga alongside Nakamba. Chong was outside of the team. He would have been maybe the one Luton midfielder you could have considered. You can't consider that now. Ogbene came in the team, played as a left-sided forward. Brown played as the right-sided forward. And Morris played through the middle. And Rob Edwards also said to us he would pick teams based on the opponent. And I imagine certainly for Burnley, that will be quite defensive, because exactly what you said. So Burnley will go there. They'll have all the ball. All the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if Burnley had sort of 70% possession at Kenilworth Road. They've done plus 60 against Manchester United at the weekend. And by the way, that was like before Fernandes scored as well. Yeah. So in the first half, Burnley were dominating the ball in that game. So no real interest. If I had to pick something from a Luton defensive this week, I would go Kabore, because I think it's the one that's got the best upside. Can I guarantee you?
Plus, if you leave him there later on, you don't feel so bad looking at it in your team or any pressure to want to play him. I get that,
but part of the reason for me was considering Burnley, like I said, was longer term. If you're thinking longer term and have used your wild card or don't intend to use it in the next few weeks or using it now, the Burnley asset longer term might be much better for you than the Luton asset.
Manchester City 2, Nottingham Forest 0. I think we have to take this game with a massive pinch of Rodri, don't we, really? Because what coulda, woulda happened had he not got himself sent off for the likes of Doku's and even Foden, Alvarez, Haaland, like, could have been a completely different scenario. Like, they bossed it. It was too easy. And at the point that you're 2-0 down to 10 men, you just want to see it out, right? You won't
often see Manchester City have 76% possession in one half and then 31% in the other. They literally sat on it as well, said to Forest, what you got. So, no, yeah, exactly that. If you've gone Alvarez and you're frustrated or anything like that, like, you shouldn't be. It's who knows what would have happened. Who knows? Man City had one shot in the second half, which Haaland should have scored with, by the way. But they literally said to the opponent, go on, what you got. Forest might not have more possession any half this season than what they had at the Etihad. You wouldn't have got odds on that pre-game. So, yeah, just one of those things. I think in terms of...
You could have sat in the stands and read a book, couldn't you, really?
Oh. Suj might be referring to a young lady at Bramwell Lane on Sunday. What's interesting now is how do they cope with the Rodri problem?
Yeah.
And this week shouldn't be a disaster against Wolves.
Well, Calvin Phillips came on, right, actually, for him. So would it be Calvin Phillips or Kovacic?
The one player who might have given real problems in terms of direct running from central areas is Bellegarde, who's obviously suspended himself. So that's not a major issue. There's every chance Kovacic and Bernardo Silva will be back fit. Any case, obviously, Núñez will obviously get booed to hell at Molineux and presumably play. More the problem's the Arsenal game, isn't it? And what are they going to do about that? Would Pep feel comfortable enough playing, say, Núñez and Kovacic or Bernardo Silva in there? I suspect he'd be really keen to play Bernardo Silva in there.
You know what he'll do is do something Pep and pick one of the centre-backs, like he just might. Fucking stick Aki in the middle.
My initial
like
reaction on Saturday night was that they'd be desperate to get John Stones ready for it and do exactly that.
But we don't have any kind of understanding, do we, of what the hell is going on with John Stones? Like, game week 1, I owned him, and it's like, yeah, just a week or two. I haven't seen him, mate, this season, so...
Also worth remembering, obviously, in the 4-1 at the Etihad in April, City played a real out-and-out 4-4-2, and that might be the best solution for them in the game. Just obviously, Rodri's not going to be one of them. It would probably be, I imagine he would probably want to go down the route Bernardo Silva and Kovacic, and they'd sit. They'd sit quite deep and let the front four go and play. Kyle Walker, I just wanted to mention, Suj. I've spoken about this a couple of times, about he's really moving into high positions as part of such scene. Was it his assist for Foden's goal? I feel like it was, wasn't it?
I will check that for you now.
He's he's really moving into high positions, which obviously kind of allows Foden from a starting position on the right. He's not playing on the right. Foden's playing as a right-sided 10. It then moves Alvarez along a bit. And Doku is obviously playing on the left at the moment, really holds that touchline on the far side. He's 5.3, Kyle Walker.
And he started every game, I think. He's played every minute of every
And he won't get looked at much because the fixtures City have coming up, they'll keep clean sheets in some of these very difficult fixtures. Ironically, you know when they're stupid and you're like, oh my God, City, you've conceded a daft goal. And I should point out, Ederson made a couple of really good saves on Saturday as well. He's worth keeping an eye on. One of the deals, apparently, in terms of trying to convince him to sign a new contract with Manchester City, where he told everyone, I'm not leaving, is he wanted more minutes. He wasn't happy with this in and out of team and stuff, and wanted more like of a direct run. Now, City don't have enough different options to go against that at the moment, you know. In terms of Walker versus Lewis, that Lewis experiment will probably come back at some stage, but it's not there at the moment. Obviously, John Stones is unavailable. Just take note of that. You've got the best team in the league, who's got a defender who's getting really, really high up the pitch. Kyle Walker is not a player that's going to get you many goals, but he may well contribute, and he's playing regularly at the moment, and it's still a very reasonable price. Did he start at 5.5 or start at 5, Suj?
He started at 5.
So he's gone up 0.3.
Sure he started at 5.
Is that right?
I seem to remember him being the cheapest. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He started at 5.
So that's almost under the radar that he's gone up 0.3.
He's only at 14.7% ownership.
Yeah, slow.
The only thing for me is, like, at the moment as it stands, I'm so comfortable with the attacking 3.
Yeah, I get that.
That it doesn't make any sense.
And it would be the same for me. But there might be others, I'm just saying, who are looking at trying to get something in defensively this week. And all I'm saying is, yes, there's a really rough run of fixtures, but how often would you actually want to bench the City player? Okay, Arsenal away might feel a little bit uncomfortable in 8. Other than that, just play him in nearly all the fixtures. Doku put on a great chance on a plate for Alvarez in the first half as well, just to add to it. And Alvarez kind of fluffed his lines a little bit. That easily could have both returned. Yeah, if you went down that route with any City that didn't return this week, which is basically I had the only 2 that didn't, it is what it is. And they'll probably come good this week.
I still think Foden's a bit under the radar. He's like the 7th, 8th highest scoring midfielder.
Would have gone down that route, but I couldn't. Like,
couldn't afford it.
People were saying to me, "Why did you go Doku over Foden?"
Yeah.
Like, it's a financial. There's no other reason.
And the thing is, he's played one less game. Like he's only started 5 of the 6 games, and the one that he didn't start was Sheffield United. Okay, away, and it wasn't the vintage.
We had the shits, didn't he, as well, didn't he?
Yeah. So you're kind of like, well, where would he be had he played all of the games? He'd be close to the top 5 midfielders. For me, he always feels like a little bit of the one that I could use as a sacrifice to get Son or get Salah and move up. But why? Because he's just as capable of outscoring any of them. I think he might just stay, you know. Whilst Alvarez, Foden and Haaland are starting at least 2 out of 3 games, I don't think I'm going to tinker with them. I think I'm just going to leave them be.
I look at your setup of your team at the moment. I think you're playing with stuff defensively. Just leave that be offensively.
Yeah.
As long as Maddison's fit.
Yeah. Exactly that. I can leave Mitoma in there. It feels comfortable.
The only one for obviously Son and Salah, and how you're going to feel about that in coming weeks.
Yeah, but moving Mitoma on's quite easy for me because of their fixtures, maybe even after Villa, and I've got enough money to get to Son. Getting to Salah is a completely different conversation. In the 5:30 kickoff, Brentford at home to Everton. This is a shock result. I would say I'd have thought Brentford at home, always difficult to beat. They've had a couple of tougher games results and not really been firing on all cylinders. And Tarkowski says to Sven Botman, hold my beer, mate, because he scored 14 points as opposed to Sven Botman's 12. So all of you gloating about Sven Botman, you screwed up. You should have been buying James Tarkowski instead.
Shout out to, I know he's a regular listener of the pod, the original team leaker, FPL Rockstar.
Rocky. Had him on the bench, didn't he?
Yeah, he was getting dug out on socials on Saturday about still having Tarkowski. I say dug out, it was all good-natured. He was getting dug out, he's still got Tarkowski. Of course, yeah, it's goal and assist. But now, you'd be laughing about it, wouldn't you? You play him in the next 2.
Yep. 4.4 million.
Luton at home, Bournemouth at home. Yeah, go on, Rocky, you've got him there, mate. Yeah, every chance he'd return in them. I mean, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You play him.
Home fixtures.
Certainly the Luton game, at least. Yeah. You'd play, I think.
Both home fixtures, yeah. And I think Everton will feel a little bit of confidence coming off the back of that. Calvert-Lewin back on the score sheet. And yeah, I don't know how long he'll last, mate. He might just probably 20 minutes of the next game. But Calvert-Lewin back on the score sheet. Somebody in our Patreon Q&A yesterday was talking about Decore. Was that 7 goals in 17 that he's contributed now as well for Everton? Right, yeah. So, you know, if they can get the full team and play in the way that Sean Dyche wants, you'd think they'd probably have enough. But
I should clarify the conversation we had on our Patreon pod yesterday when I said I think Decore could come out the team. And I said that because of Calvert-Lewin's availability, and I completely forgot the absolutely golden rule. Sean Dyche team wins, doesn't change the team. And so therefore I don't think Calvert-Lewin will go in.
And the fact that he's been so injury prone means that maybe you want to take a bit more time with DCL.
So maybe. I think you'll get him as an impact probably rather than go straight back in the team this week. He is 5.8, and no one's suggesting anyone goes there. I'm saying that he probably doesn't start at the weekend, for example. But you'd have to monitor that, I think.
Who?
Calvert-Lewin.
Oh, okay.
Calvert-Lewin, 5.8.
Yeah, that's very cheap.
You know, if or when he gets back in, yeah, you'd be interested on that. And on Decore, again, there'd be worse 2-week punts. Again, consider a little bit like what I said with Fulham. If you're looking and thinking, I'm wildcarding in game week 9, they've got Luton at home and Bournemouth at home. And I think that does bring the likes of a Beto. Probably less so, because you could see Calvert-Lewin coming on for him at half-time or something if it goes wrong, maybe. But the likes of Decore, McNeil, Jared Brantwaite, I think, if it offers you like a route to something else financially, is still only 4.0. They could be looked at. What I would say is after the next 2, it is horrendous. It's horrendous for Everton up to roughly roundabouts game week 30. So it would only be a really short-term investment.
Can you imagine that? When our fixtures get good, James, game week 31.
Yeah, I'm not joking.
Unbelievable.
It's awful. The whole of their wins is awful. Now, what they did show us at the weekend was a very different Everton, who they probably deserved to win, right? There's no bones about it. I think in terms of... they're still underperforming, I think, their XG maybe this season. They're one of the best, I think, for big chances this season. Like, yeah, sure, punt it for a couple of weeks. They're huge games for the football club, but those were almost bonus points at the weekend because Evertonians wouldn't have been expecting them. On Brentford, it's concerning. That's
2 defeats, one against Newcastle away. Is it concerning?
Probably pound for pound, arguably their worst performance since they got promoted.
Yeah, but they're not. They're the kind of team that when they get that, Thomas Frank will sort them out. I think that's a wake-up call more than it is a concern.
I think the Rico Henry injury is really bad because his athleticism and how quickly that allowed Brentford to get up the pitch shouldn't be underestimated.
I watched our friends at Hub on the Sky 3-for-1 yesterday. Paul McAnulty was raising some really interesting stats. He likes to find random Twitter accounts that are very small that quote random stats. The one that he found was a guy who tweets, and forgive me, I don't know the name of the account, but if I can find it, I'll try and retweet it. The stats of players making dangerous runs in behind.
Okay.
And Bomo's in the last 2 games completely dropped off a cliff, just non-existent. And I was going to ask you, like, what can we read into that? Is that a Henry-related issue, or is that a way that Newcastle and Everton have defended against Brentford? And what do we read into that against Nottingham Forest coming up for Mbomo? Because it's still only 2 games ago that he scored a goal, right, and returned.
Oh, yeah. So, and listen, he's on pens and stuff, so he could return in any game.
But he is 6.9, and he could be the make-weight for a lot of people that want to get to a Madison or Diaby or any of these kind of guys.
Let's ask a simplistic question for a similar price. Who would you rather have this week, Mbomo at Forest or Jared Bowen at Sheffield United?
Oh, Jared Bowen all day long.
It's not just that, though. I think it's looking around and knowing Diaby's going to get investment and Mbumo's bigger price. Mitoma's done well this week and also himself comes into good fixtures after Diaby's good fixtures start. So there'll be investment in that sort of area, I should imagine, in coming weeks. What's more concerning is what Brentford did in the last half hour with him. So, rarely chasing a game against a team that obviously just wants to sit in and counter-attack on them. Brentford went to a back 5. They moved Brian Mbumo to right wing back. And I spoke about this being a concern, not so much for the easier games like Everton and Forest, but more of the difficult ones coming up. The fact that Frank decided to make that change when they were chasing the game against an Everton, and he didn't look happy about it, and Bumo, by the way, would cause real alarm for me, because his solution might be, consider as well, Forest now might play a back four against Brentford, having shown that they can do that against Burnley in game week 5. And it might even be because Cooper might bring back in the speed of the likes of Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, who didn't start, understandably, at the Etihad. He might decide to go back to a back 5. And you might have Mbumo playing right wing back.
You might have a back 5 with Mbumo up top, though, as well.
You absolutely could have a back 5 with Mbumo playing up front with Fissa. It would probably help a little bit in the sense that Kevin Sade obviously got an injury in the warm-up, which meant that Keane Lewis-Potter started. I thought he faded as the game went on. He was quite direct really early in the game. I know he had a good pre-season with Brentford. But consider as well, out-and-out forward, Mr. Maupay was ineligible at the weekend. Maybe Brentford will use him. I'm not saying Mbumo owners should sell. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying Mbumo owners should be very, very aware that the situation could really change here. And again, the week after against Manchester United, they'll definitely play a back 5. So again, is it Mbumo up front in the front 2? Or is it right wing back? I suspect it will probably still be up front, by the way, but there should be a consciousness, because the build without Rico Henry is not the same. You've lost Hickey from right back, gone to left back's not quite the same. Ajer and Roslev are no replacements for either in terms of offensive output. On Brentford, if you wanted to buy one defensively still, it would be Pinnock. I think would now probably be the best choice for me. And just to note as well, Starkosha has dropped to 3.9. So if anybody is insistent they want Flecken as their number 1, people probably don't feel like that today, then you can have the 2 keepers there for 8.4.
Let's talk about Burnley 0, Manchester United 1. A good away win for Manchester United because they need to get some points on the board, definitely. Yeah. In the lead up to the weekend, there was a lot of talk around, a lot of people that had doubled up with Rashford and Bruno, and Bruno seemed to be the one that a lot of people were saying that they would want to move on and keep Rashford in the bits and pieces.
You're thinking about Rashford's pace against Burnley, aren't you?
I'm not a good gauge of what is going on in the community and what content creators are saying, because I pick up random bits and pieces. But it did feel like Rashford keep, Bruno move on. But I wasn't so convinced with that for 2 reasons. One is price, right? Bruno's a little bit cheaper. So if Rashford's the one you move on, you're going to save yourself $500,000 there that might actually come in really handy if you're trying to get Son and Salah. And the other thing with Bruno is the ability to get points in different ways with assists, and he takes more set pieces and what have you. I felt like he might be the one to tick along. And I do think Bruno Fernandes, and even with the fixtures that they've now got coming up, isn't the worst pick at 8.4 million. He's been a £10 million midfielder before. But Palace, Brentford, Sheffield United, if you owned him, you'd just keep him now, wouldn't you?
I don't know. But what they've done in the last 2 games is different things, right? So they played a diamond against Brighton. Their solution in this game in terms of the right-hand side midfield problem was to play Hannibal out there. And Erik ten Hag said specifically that he was using Hannibal because of his energy. I actually thought United were very well prepared defensively for Burnley in terms of Burnley's build-up. So I said Burnley wanted to kind of a la similar Tottenham, but really even more defined build up in a 2-3 system where they're tucking the 2 fullbacks in narrow, and United were ready for that in terms of Fernandes going into Cullen, Hannibal going into Taylor, and Rashford going into Roberts. Like defensively, from that, in terms of trying to stop Burnley's early build up, fine. But he's still not quite right offensively and stuff. They've won this game because he's provided a moment of brilliance, and the likes of Fernandes and Rashford are obviously very capable of moments of brilliance at any point in time. And I said last week that I think those 2 players could still remain good, even though not everything feels right with Manchester United at the moment. Would I be looking at Bruno Fernandes this week, Suj, and thinking, sell, sell, sell? No. But would I be thinking, well, if I haven't got Heung-min Son and I've got 0.78 in the bank, would I have a consciousness about it? Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would at this moment in time.
I'd definitely go Sonny over Fernandes. So your fixtures are way better than theirs even. Not this week, but after that, you've got a good one.
Not really. I've got United, and this is where I'm quite pleased with what I've done, because again, I could have looked at them fiction and go, keep, never get rid. I've got United top of my FDR for like the next 6, 7 and 8. Despite the fact they've got Manchester City over that period as well. Their fixtures are really good, Suj. So actually, longer term, no, probably a bit better than Tottenham. This week on paper, United play Palace is better than Tottenham playing Liverpool, for example. So, no, I wouldn't necessarily move it on. Let me ask you as well, though. I'd mentioned about covering off for Haaland captaincy. Would you be comfortable putting the armband on Rashford or Fernandes at the moment?
No way.
In any game?
No way. I'd go with Saka.
That says something, doesn't it?
I'd go Alvarez instead of Haaland. I'd pick any of the City boys. Then I'd pick one of the Arsenal boys. Depending on if you guys had a good fixture, I'd pick it on one of your attackers. And even if like Brighton had a good game, I'd feel more fruity going with Mitoma over
Liverpool. Not just Salah, is it? Nunes as well, maybe?
Yeah. No, not really. Not for me at the moment.
But that says something, doesn't it? It's not that you need to captain these players. I'm not saying that at all, but it just opens your mind, I think, to the thinking. Would you be comfortable in that circumstance?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I would necessarily. And the next two, it's 2 home games. It's Palace, Brentford. But I feel like there'll be grinds. Do you get that feel? Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel like there'll be grinds. So look, it's circumstantial. I've sold Rashford. That's not to say Rashford's bad. Not at all. I just wanted a different player. If you've got and you're happy, crack on. If you're not, though, I would say maybe move, because the other big clubs that have played Burnley really hurt them. And Manchester United didn't. That might, in fairness, though, tell us of improvements that I've been stressing will come for Burnley as well. And I don't think they'll necessarily make it easy for Newcastle at the weekend as well. That game won't be 8-0. Goodmanson went off quite early in the game and brought Mike Tressor on, which meant Koleosho had to move to the right-hand side. That's not necessarily great for Koleosho if anyone's kind of punted it that way. He's 5.0. If you were going to punt a midfielder from Luton Burnley for the double, that would probably be the one for me, but that's not great. There's plenty of people out there who think Amdouni will be a better choice for the double than Carlton Morris by sheer virtue of the fact that Burnley play Luton rather than the other way round, and I can understand that. Charlie Taylor's really put his name up, as I said. That was originally going to be the one for me at 3.9. Just wanted clarity on his position. Is he absolutely nailed? No. But has he manipulated himself to be first choice when he was nowhere in the picture before game week 4? Yes, he seems to have convinced Vincent Kompany. One alarm I'd have for the likes of Bayer and Alderkill is I don't know what the situation with Dario O'Shea is, whether he's injured or whether he's been dropped from the squad and why he's not been in it in the last 2. I said to you he was bad against us, but I can't find reporting of what's happened. Jack's coming on COTC with Dan on Thursday. Hopefully he'll know more about it. So just a caution on that. But if I had to go one right now, it'd be Taylor.
Okay. North London derby on Sunday kicks us off. Arsenal 2, Spurs 2, Desmond. And I mean, I live in North London, right? I would say 70-80% of the people that I know support like Spurs or Arsenal, and then the rest of Manchester United, as they are in North London, mate. So this is one of them where it's like, yeah, good that it's a draw because all of them shut up rather than me having to hear from half of them wherever it may be. But yeah, you'd be happy with that going to the Emirates and not losing, of course. Yeah. And Arsenal, look, they're still unbeaten, and they scored a couple of goals. So it's one of them. I think both sides will just take it, walk away. And
we scored 3 and gave them a penalty. Look, in serious, and I know there's a lot of mocking about, Tottenham fans are celebrating because they drew at the Emirates. I mean, that's not quite that, but also consider that the last 3 times we've played at the Emirates, under 3 different managers, by the way, we've been absolutely battered and completely outclassed and might as well have not even bothered turning up. So the fact that the team turned up and put in an impressive performance after a really difficult start, I think it's really good. I think most teams, if I said to a Manchester City fan now, you take a point at the Emirates in game week 8, they'd go, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. Arsenal away has got to be one of the toughest games in the world, isn't it?
Or probably. I don't know. The stats will speak for themselves.
Seriously?
The stats will speak for themselves. Like, they win the majority of their home games.
Well, let's put it a different way then. How many teams in the world are there that are better than Arsenal?
A handful at best.
Okay, so it's a decent...
3, 4...
So drawing there is a decent result for anyone, right?
Of course.
Exactly. I thought Arsenal in the opening half hour were brilliant. And they were brilliant actually because of their defensive work. So it might not have felt like it watching the game, but Tottenham had 61% of the ball in the first half. And that came about through two things. One, because Tottenham were intent on trying to play and not going long and trying to play through Arsenal. And it kept going backwards and recycling because Arsenal's press off the ball was so well structured and really good. And they were the dominant team. And to be honest, half hour into the game, Suj, I was looking at that clock thinking, can you get me to half-time without being 2-0 down? I'd have taken that. If you'd have said to me at that point, you get to half-time and you're 1-0 down and reset, I'd have been delighted with that. Because it looked like, the opening third of the game looked a bit like a team that had a really good new philosophy, but had come up against a team that was superior to them, in my opinion. And Arsenal were superior in that opening third. What then happened was Tottenham realised that they could go a bit more direct. Now, we're not saying long, but, you know, a la the equalising goal, if you will. It's just a kind of a hopeful ball into a position from Maddison into the channel. But Tottenham realised that they could go in quicker into the front three. And once they realised that, it caused hesitancy in Arsenal's press. Then we got an equal football match. And I thought we got over that opening hurdle really well and recovered. And in the second half, I felt really comfortable. After we equalised the second time, I never thought they were going to score an open play. And I think as a fan, like if you've experienced these games and derbies and stuff, you do spend most of the game shitting yourself. And I wasn't Suj. It was only on corners that I was worried. They're in swinging corners from whether it's Saka or Odegaard from that far side. As I said last week, they nearly always take in-swing corners, but didn't against Everton quite often. They're really dangerous. And you know if Gabriel or Saliba get the touch, like, game over, right? It led from that side. The penalty instant, no qualms on the penalty, definite penalty. Although, interestingly, did you know, Suj, if it had gone in straight in and not hit Romero's hand, it would have been disallowed.
Oh, wow, okay.
It touched Ben White's arm.
Right.
Just by virtue of even the graze. It's obviously not handball, but because he would directly score, ironically, it would be disallowed. But yeah, no arguments with the penalty. It's clearly blocking the ball going towards goal. That's fine. From the fantasy perspective, fair result, by the way, overall. The fantasy perspective, for us, Son and Maddison are great options. That's clear. I was asked, I think only this morning or late last night, if I still preferred paying a little bit extra for Porro than Udogie. The answer would still be yes.
Well, he started the last few games, so that alone. Oh, sorry, over Udogie.
Over Udogie, yeah.
Over Emerson.
Yeah, I still would. It gets into more variations of position. There was one in the first half, actually, where he ended up in the 6-yard box, and if it had come across the box, he's possibly got a tap in Porro. Udogie doesn't quite get into those positions as often. I thought Udogie was brilliant, by the way, because he obviously got booked early, a little bit like Tottenham, struggled in that opening kind of quarter of the game. He got booked early. Anyone who's listened to the commentary, you would have thought Gary Neville would. Gary Neville, I don't think had seen this player play football before, and yet I know he had. He was just digging into him like every minute. Oh, this is a big problem for Tottenham. Well, Tottenham should consider a change here. Then he had a really bad back pass, and I was like, this is adding to the narrative. But after that, for the final hour of the game, he did really, really well, and I'm very confident it will do really well against Mo Salah at the weekend. That doesn't mean Mo Salah's a bad choice. Of course it doesn't. How many points did Saka get, Suj?
14.
14, yeah. And Udogie could do really well against Salah at the weekend, and Mo Salah might still get that sort of haul as well. But as an individual matchup, I think Udogie will do really well against him. My honest take on it was, as I said to you yesterday, what would I prefer, Udogie against Saka on a yellow card or just Ben Davies against Saka? Leave me Udogie. Absolutely. And he did really well. Saka is a brilliant asset, and I think Adam puts it really well on COTC yesterday, where he says, you know, he's shown that he's probably worth the more versus, say, Odegaard at the moment. And in the big moments where they're missing key players, and they were, like Martinelli and obviously then Trossard on top of that as well, he steps up. He almost seems to step up bigger in the bigger games as well, I think, Bukayo Saka. Brilliant asset for fantasy. If Rice is injured, and he's obviously gone off at half-time, which makes you think there's a problem, right? You're taking Declan Rice off at half-time in the North London derby. Something's not right.
Correct.
That's what you'd read between the lines. We don't know the information.
He was icing his leg, and then there news reports where it was his back and all sorts of weirdness. So I don't know what the situation is.
So he's obviously a doubt for this weekend. They will have a very difficult game at Bournemouth this weekend if he's unavailable. And then obviously we've spoken about City without Rodri. Yeah, Arsenal without Rice would probably be an even bigger problem going into that game in game week 8. It's not. If you look at that midfield that finished the game for Arsenal, Jorginho, Havertz, and Odegaard, it's like, where's all the speed of it gone and stuff? You'd be looking at it and going, keep Odegaard quiet. And I've seen a few Arsenal fans say that they thought Odegaard had a bad game. I don't think he had a bad game. I thought it was magnificent in the press in the first third of the game. But let's say he had a quiet game, I would say. Defensively, for fantasy, I think we should begin to have our eyes on Gabriel.
Yep.
Because it's going so far this way now. And again, Adam clarifies on COTC that he thinks, as long as Zinchenko is going to stay fit, that's it. He's staying in the team now. He's 4.7, Gabriel. And we're all falling over ourselves to buy Udogis and cash, etc. Arsenal will concede less goals.
Yep.
And realise it's not as exciting or thrilling going forward. And yes, there's some difficult games to come for Arsenal, such as City at home and Newcastle away a few weeks afterwards. But I look at even, say, the Chelsea fixture in game week 9 and go, for me now, I'm playing Saliba and that. I'm not bothered.
If you were wildcarding now, would you swap Saliba for Gabriel?
Definitely.
Yeah, because it's a 0.4 difference. It's quite a bit of money, man.
Take the 0.1 profit and you're coming down 0.3 as well. You're kind of banking
0.4 difference.
0.4 is for something else, right?
Yeah, it's definitely decent.
So if I was wildcarding, and to be honest, I'm not seeing many Arsenal defensive in wildcard teams, but yeah, I would pretty sure I'd probably have Gabriel in, actually. Nice. Or at least set it up where if I was, say, going to gamble on a Luton player, say for this week, and maybe not in a Forest away, leave the money to come back for Arsenal when Luton's run gets back. That might sound weird, Luton to Arsenal, but it's the sort of thing maybe I would look at.
Nice.
Brennan Johnson, we think hamstring injury not bad, but we now know that he can play on the left as well. We have our answer in terms of could it be Johnson through the middle. I think what Son's been doing these last few games, I think he's staying through the middle now. Okay. That's not to say he can't look at Luton and go, well, I want more of a target in Richarlison. Like perhaps there was a little bit of regret against Sheffield United. But I think, Sonny through the middle with him, if he gets chances, he score goals. And, I mean, it's 5 goals in the 3 games he's played there, right? So, yeah, he's in for me.
Brighton 3, Bournemouth 1. Started off a bit, with Bournemouth taking the lead. Like,
brilliant goal, wasn't it?
Come on, where's my Brighton points here? But in the end, normal service has been resumed and Brighton 3-1 and going good guns.
But De Zerbi said that was one of their worst performances since he's been there.
Yeah.
So, and it's credit to Bournemouth. And I think, again, I don't want to talk about Bournemouth too much because we kind of covered them quite a bit on the podcast yesterday. But when you look at it, they've got 3 points from 6 games, Bournemouth. The only 3 games they've lost to teams who are currently in the top 4, and they may well expect to lose to Arsenal at the weekend as well. And you look 3 points from 7, that's rough, but the fixtures were rough. They do come into a better run from game week 8.
Not a better run, like a Fulham, Everton, Sheffield United, Forest. It's a really good run.
Yeah.
Really good. Like, I look at it, if I was going to sell Mitoma for Sonny right now, I'm thinking, how am I getting back?
Did you say Fulham?
Yeah.
What Bournemouth's fixtures? Everton in 8.
No, sorry, we're talking about Brighton.
Oh, I'm talking about Bournemouth.
Brighton's are rough, but then become really good as well.
From 10, yeah. Bournemouth from 8 becomes quite good, starting with the Everton away game short term. Then there's a couple more difficult ones, then it gets good again. Unfortunately, none of the midfielders look worth going for, and I think flip of the good fixtures, again, could you look at enablers like Christie, etc., to enable you, your Mo Salah, for example? It's probably not on the table. The left wing ones would be the most interesting between, say, Kluivert and Utara, because they're like sort of 4.8-ish and stuff. There's no clarity in terms of who's going to play there. The most interesting one's probably Tavernier, but he's the most expensive.
Yeah.
So they're probably a no-go from that perspective. Solanke will tick over fine up front. But I think despite their points return, Bournemouth have already shown us, I think, what a lot of us suspected in pre-season, that they'll do quite well, I think. Worth keeping an eye on next few weeks. For Brighton, I got 10 and 11 right, Suj, in my predicted lineup. I think that's a miracle because it's going to be bad every week. This week should be easier because we've got the Carabao Cup game on Wednesday night. Will give us hopefully some clues. They play Chelsea. I would presume there'd be quite a bit of rotation. Then obviously after Villa, there's 5 days before the European game. So you would think he would pick probably close to his strongest side at Villa this weekend, and the likes of Mitoma will definitely start now and stuff. But no, it's a headache. That predicted lineup I did was based on logic of minutes and who had them and who hadn't. And I think that's just going to be an ongoing problem. And he doesn't care. He doesn't, Adingra's less experienced.
Just play them all, yeah.
Webster's not been playing. There was a school of thought that Webster would play if Dunk wasn't available because of Webster's experience. He played both. He doesn't care. He'll do what he wants, De Zerbi. And you just have to be aware that there's going to be a big kind of rotation issue and headache coming up. However, in Estupinan and Mitoma and Dunk, but less of an interest for fantasy, they will play the majority. They will not play when they need a rest, is my take. Physically, they need a rest. Otherwise, they will play the majority of the games. And that's why Estupinan and Mitoma will stay very interesting Brighton assets.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet, because I'm prepared to sacrifice, right? If I end up looking at 9 and going, right, well, I can make this work, and shoving Mitoma to something allows me to get the Salah, I'm going to shove it. Similarly, if I decide I want to come off this Estupinan because it comes too much of a headache, or over this period, picking him might look awkward. But also look at his fixture and think it's only Man City away that I don't want to play him. Like if I play him at home to Liverpool, it's fine. If I play him at Villa, it's fine. Then the fixtures
It's fine. Well, what do we know about Villa defensively? High line.
Yes, true.
Mitoma's dribbling and pacing. I think I'm going to play him this week and then make that move to Sonny the week after. I
might bench both of them, you know that.
Oh, brutal. Let's move it on to Chelsea.
What do I do? Do I bench Doku at like Wolves? If I think Doku's going to play at Wolves.
Got to play Doku. Yeah. But I think Mitoma could easily outscore him. At Chelsea 0, Aston Villa 1, a game that maybe might have gone differently had Gusto not got himself sent off. From what I could see, and people have been saying that Villa were getting more into the game anyway. It was the balance of the game was going towards Aston Villa before
still
it happened.
Attacking goal though.
Yeah, for sure. Ollie Watkins getting on the score sheet finally and breaking the assist curse. Aston Villa are going to be all right for a little while, and anyone moving towards them before their good run starts.
It's worth noting as well, for those who haven't seen the goal, Diaby's really unlucky not to get the assist because Diaby sends Watkins away. The first shot is blocked, and then Watkins scores immediately afterwards, and therefore it doesn't count as an assist because it's a rebound off a shot. Yeah. Which is, I remember the first time that happened to me, Mkhitaryan sending Lukaku through for United at Stoke. Beautiful, like precision, 1v1, Lukaku shoots, is saved, Lukaku rolls in the rebound, don't get the assist, feels properly unfair with some of the assists you do get. But that's the rules. Really good result for Villa. They're on 12 points and they've lost away to Newcastle and away to Liverpool, right? So probably hitting as good as expectations could have been so far. I think we saw probably in Thursday in Poland with a few rotated players that there probably will be some inconsistencies. I think the high line might be calming down a little bit, Suj. I also think that the role of Kamara and McGinn is proving really pivotal in terms of keeping Matty Cash as an interesting fantasy asset. We know there's been long this left-sided bias with Villa. At the moment, with Dean and Cash, the bias doesn't exist. And the reason it doesn't exist, and the two fullbacks are both still maintaining good interest, is a little bit like what I said last week. Kamara filling in again. If you look at his heat maps at the weekend, again, I didn't watch the game. I don't think I need to, looking at his heat maps. Kamara really drifting in, I think, to right-back positions to let him go. And it's also McGinn coming off the right and moving in centrally. Allows the two fullbacks to do what they're best at moving forward. Dean had one unbelievable shot in the first half, by the way. And what's important for those who've gambled on Luca Dean, which we've said, be careful, is the word from Unai Emery after the game when Alex Moreno was not quite ready yet. Still a bit to do, actually. So it doesn't sound like Moreno will be coming in as quickly as many of us would have imagined. Therefore, the two fullbacks, Pau Torres or Ezri Konsa, if you're very nervous about that. The goalkeeper, Diaby, Watkins, good options going forward for these upcoming fixtures for Villa, which you can debate start now from the offensive players against Brighton, Wolves away, or then it's West Ham at home, Luton at home. Pretty much whichever week you want, you can start going in. And also there's two kind of really enabling midfielders, which again might prove useful for your Mo Salah conundrum. Douglas Luiz 5.4. We know he's on penalties.
And a lot of set pieces, and tries to score from every corner.
He does try and score from corners as well. And Nicolo Zaniolo is 0.1 more. And I think with the way Villa are playing with this setup at the moment, while he'll stick in the team. That's more of a gamble. He also had one really good shot in the first half as well. So across that with Villa, there's interesting assets, there's enabling assets. They're going to be subject to a lot of interest over the next couple of weeks, Aston Villa players. If you have none, I'd be thinking about it quite strongly. And if you have 3 Chelsea players, I'd also be thinking about that quite strongly. Jackson is an obvious sell. It goes without saying. Raheem Sterling, position-wise, average position, touching the boxes, all those little bits, he's absolutely fine. I said after the Luton game, I just think he's a player that will just frustrate too much. None of the other attacking assets particularly interest. As said earlier, with the defensive players, I think Colwell might go to centre-back, Disasai right-back, and yes, in theory, Ben Chilwell should play at left-back against Fulham. Willie, you'd have to ask their manager, and frustration is beginning to hit boiling point already, Suj.
Yeah, I'm with you on that completely with Chilwell, especially when there's some good assets. Like you mentioned, Gabriel 4.7, Sven Botman 4.6. There's plenty of other options at that level that we can go down to. Let's move on to Liverpool 3, West Ham United 1 at Anfield. Did you watch the full game afterwards? No. I know you watched bits of it, didn't you?
I'm taking this game off, mate.
Oh, okay.
Off you go. I only watched the first half of Newcastle because I didn't need to watch the second.
Yeah. I'm sure. I don't know. When were we talking on the Patreon Q&A? I felt like you said you'd watched this game afterwards.
No, I've rewatched Liverpool's games against Villa and Wolves.
Right.
I rewatched both of them for talking tactics.
Yeah, if it was a frustrating game from a West Ham point of view, I think Liverpool this season, they've been getting results without being at their best, is what I would describe it. Like, this was no way a 3-1, but it probably was a 2-1, if you know what I mean. And I think it's a classic case of goals change matches completely, because we did really well in the first 20 minutes, passing the ball around, keeping them pinned in, had a couple of great chances. Souček's header, like, Alisson pulls off a great save, getting down low. Antonio had another great chance where I don't know if his head was shaped like a cardboard box with the way that it bounced off his head and went wide. But he should have done better with that as well. And it's one of those where if you get a goal, suddenly you're defending something and you play slightly differently. With the flip side, whenever Liverpool have an attack and are incisive, they can just turn it on in like seconds. Ball goes from back to front and they score a goal. As you saw with the penalty, again, just sloppy. Salah scores, job done. West Ham did well to get back into it, but again, stupid defending. Very similar to Bernardo Silva's goal against West Ham, where it's dinked in over the top. Again, makes a mistake and Nunes puts it away. But
finish.
Yeah, it was a very good finish. But prior to that, again, Antonio had a one-on-one which he fluffed, and we had another couple of attempts from corners. Had we scored from one of them, the balance of the game changes. But I think in the second half, West Ham looked tired, couldn't quite keep up with the pace of Liverpool and faded away, whereas Liverpool were able to just keep pushing ahead. And what they have with McAllister and Szoboszlai is quite a good energy levels, because they're constantly keeping it moving. With Diaz on the left, always a threat and constantly moving, and same with Salah. Joe Gomez channeled his inner Cafu in the game.
Is it?
He was not as good as Cafu, but he was very advanced. But you know how Trent will not get down to the touchline because he can cross from 50 yards out and put it on a sixpence. Gomez played very high up.
Robertson didn't, did he?
Nah.
Told you about this.
Not at all. Gomez.
Do not want Van Dijk going into left back.
I was very surprised with, like, he wasn't a great attacking right back, but he did a decent job. He was as good as, like Sofal. He's not great, right? But he's not bad. He gets up there and he puts a few crosses in.
Joe Gomez will be thrilled hearing that comparison.
But I mean, like, he'll look back at his performance and be very happy playing right back, because he's not his position. But yeah, tough day for West Ham. Like, we've just lost 2 games 3-1 against City and Liverpool, but played well in both of them, given a decent account of ourselves, but yet the quality hasn't told. And I think Salah at any given moment, yeah. I think if I can't find the money to get to Salah, it's going to be a disappointing regret in the end.
Oh, listen, exactly that, right? If I don't end up with Mo Salah, I know what's coming. It's just there's others I can't let go of, or I can't get there without You know,
Finally,
you have to start thinking of combinations. Being serious for a second, you have to start thinking about combinations. Like, would you rather have like Son and Saka, or would you rather have Salah and like a Diaby? Right? You have to start thinking about these things.
Yep.
And listen, there'll be people out there who can work their team to get like all four of them as an example, and like brilliant, well done. But these sort of things come into play, don't they? It's more extreme than that, isn't it? 3 million difference.
Yeah,
It's be more like a Salah and a Douglas Luiz, wouldn't it? Or Gordon. Yep.
I think I may end up without Salah. If I was thinking about who else would I get from Liverpool, I think Luis Diaz he's still always a threat at any given moment. I'm not sold on Nunez though. I don't think I'll go Nunez. I think he would annoy me too much. If I was going to get another Liverpool,
my consciousness is both on Nunez and Diaz at the moment. Is the Everton game in Gameweek 9 to 12:30, straight after international break again, and now consciousness of that. I think for me, if I had, say, an Alvarez or a Watkins problem, because my intention at the moment is just go, right, that's the three now. Alvarez, Watkins, Haaland for the minute. If one of them got injured, the choice then is, I think, right, do I make this work now for Salah, or do I just go, right, I'll gamble Nunez?
Yeah, Nunez being a forward versus Diaz and Salah being midfielders also has an influence, right? I've got two strikers that I want in Alvarez and Haaland. Pedro, I'm happy to play around with. All my midfielders, like you said, you're going to enjoy watching me decide who to bench out of my midfielders this week. So why do I want to break that to get Salah? Just go Nunez, but I don't fancy it, if I'm honest with you.
I do, if the minutes are assured.
Well, that's the big question mark,
Very
mate.
good.
Because who comes off the bench? Jota, Gakpo all came on, bring the cavalry on at like 80 minutes or whatever.
And I might have this wrong, so forgive me, but I think someone had posted at the weekend that I think since the start of last season, Premier League, I think Salah was only about 12 minutes better than Nunez per goal or something.
Oh, wow.
Like Nunez's ratio for his minutes is outstanding.
His minutes are
Dan Lord said to us on COTC last week, he said he didn't think he'd start against West Ham and he was still going to go with him on wildcard. He's that convinced about him. Before you move on to your team briefly, I want to ask you about Szoboszlai. Not for fantasy. Just asking
in
you
general.
About it. Yeah, because it's not a fantasy option.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great player.
He is.
He's got so much energy. He's the one that's like dictating the play, I would say. Because if I look at it, I think our midfield had a better game than their midfield in terms of Paqueta, Ward-Prowse, Alvarez and Souček versus McAllister, Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones. But they can bypass the midfield and get into the front three so much quicker that it doesn't really matter. That was the problem. But Paqueta was the best midfielder on the pitch, I would have said. But he went missing for a good 40 minutes in the middle of the game. Szoboszlai just pops up everywhere. He's pinging it around. He's driving the play. I like him. He's a good player. Really good player. Can't take a free kick for Toffee though, mate.
Well, Trent will be back soon enough.
Well, I think there was. He took two in the first half, hit the wall both times with Salah standing next to him on both of them. I don't think they won another one after.
Look,
but
it's.
I wouldn't buy him in fantasy though. But.
No, neither would I at the moment. It feels like one you'd be like, I want Liverpool coverage. I'd rather punt on Jota minutes and a bit more, or even, to be honest, arguably even come down for Jones, because Jones will be cheap. What price Curtis Jones?
I'll find out for you.
He'd tick over and get little bits. I think he's
4.9, James.
Yeah. He'll tick over and get little bits. With him, you're more liable to get a bit of rotation. But what's really important, actually, again, having looked back at, say, particularly saying the Wolves game, and I know he played two different roles in the Wolves game, Curtis Jones. So in the first half, a lot of his job is to go from left-sided 8 position to basically left winger, which would allow Jota to come off the left-hand side and join in with Gakpo started in terms of front two, Salah holding wide. There was times in the Wolves game where Liverpool built, where they played with wing-backs. It didn't work. And in the second half, Jones went and played as a 6, basically, with Szoboszlai, and the two of them, particularly Szoboszlai, was great. Jones will take over. I mean, if you're going to end up with no Liverpool, Jones would always be one you'd be like, it's going to block me 3 Liverpool. But if you come into Game Week 9, you're like, I want a bit of coverage. Maybe Jones will allow you Salah, for example. Who knows? I think Szoboszlai, though, is one of the signings of the season. And I think clubs are going to really quickly start taking note of him in terms of stopping him trying to get on the ball. He is exceptional, what I've seen of him so far. Absolutely brilliant. I'm just going to say what a find. Saw him play for Hungary against England.
It's not like they paid 20 million for him, mate. It was like 60, 70 million.
So he's young. He's still only like 22, 23. But Liverpool have got an absolute gem there. What a really good player he is, Dominic Szoboszlai. For fantasy, no. Trent's coming back soon. The one that might be interesting again, that might fit in, would be, I know Matip started at the weekend, but we think there might have been just an easing of Konate because he played in Austria on Thursday. Konate's like 4.9-ish. It might even dip to 4.8.
It's not bad.
Suj is not impressed.
Yeah, and even Szoboszlai, like, exceptional, amazing gem find. I don't know if I'd go that far, to be honest with you. But don't get me wrong, he's up there and as a fantastic player. Just need to see a little bit more. Like, it's only 6 games into his career, and I don't think Liverpool have fixed the issue with like a Fabinho or a holding midfielder still, because that isn't McAllister and it isn't Curtis Jones. And I think you could sacrifice, if they could sacrifice Curtis Jones and chuck in a proper holding midfielder, even like the Edson Alvarez that we bought, or a Rodri or someone like that, that would free up the front 5 so much more that then I could see them doing some serious damage. But they got away with it against us in the end because we ran out of legs.
If you were free hitting this week, Suj?
Yes.
And I think some are, not many, but some are. How many West Ham go in, do you think?
Areola, for sure. If I was free hitting...
Free hitting, 1 week.
I was thinking wild card there for a second. 3 go in, mate.
Which 3?
Definitely Areola. Definitely Ward-Prowse.
Did you not go like Kaminsky with a double?
No.
I think if I was free hitting, I'd go.
Sorry, I'm thinking of wild
just
card
as well.
Still. Yeah.
If
sorry,
you're free
double
hitting,
the goalkeeper. I'm going Ward-Prowse.
You got no money issue. You're not going to have any money issues if you're free hitting this week.
I'm going Ward-Prowse. I didn't watch Sheffield United Newcastle. Is this a set piece thing? How many of their goals were set pieces?
Only 2, I think.
Okay.
But just the second and third, if that helps. Then Newcastle just played through them.
If I'd go with Bowen, and if you wanted to be punty, I would go with Souček because he's getting the flick-ons. He's played better than he ever had when Declan Rice was alongside him as Thomas Souček, in more ways than just being the lanky guy that gets on the end of crosses and gets on the end of set pieces. He's providing much more of a threat at the moment. So, yeah. It's funny, we've got like 4 central midfielders with Souček, Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta. It's basically a 4 that they're playing with. I'd fancy a punt on him, but I just don't think Sheffield United will give up as many chances as they did against Newcastle because they won't want to be embarrassed again.
Can't.
But JWP for sure.
It can't. Fudgenham conceded 8 and nearly made as many saves. It can't.
Yeah, there are some JWP I still want to get to at some point. Areola will be my goalkeeper eventually.
Do you know what's happened here? Nico's sitting behind the camera. He's just gone, how am I going to fit all the stuff from the Sheffield United Newcastle game on the screen on YouTube?
Well, 8-0, 8 different goal scorers. What do we just read into this that Sheffield United are garbage, or is there something to look into it? With Newcastle, because they've been a bit ropey, but they've gone and done the business, right? Manchester City went to Bramall Lane and came away with a 2-1.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a lucky win, but, they didn't take them to pieces.
Do you recall what I said last week when I was talking about Sheffield United? I said some nice things for about 2.5 minutes and then summed it up by saying...
They're the worst team in the league.
They're shit.
Yeah.
And that was harsh, but it was also my analysis. And one of the other things I also spoke about last week was the difficulty of getting the first goal. You get the first goal at a reasonable time, then expect them to take a hammer in at some point soon. And actually, ironically, in the first 10 minutes or so, I actually thought Sheffield United played all right. They did something quite interesting in the sense that, obviously, with McBurney out injured, they played more of a kind of a box shape in midfield with Hammer a little bit further on. Oliver Norwood come into the team and McAtee played a little bit narrower as well. So they kind of had McAtee and Gustavo Hammer in support of Cameron Archer. But they were, they didn't play against Newcastle. They played against my team, mate. They were open right from the start of the game. They were open. It was almost like, I don't know, they decided they were going to have a really fast start and go for it. And like I said, they had a couple of half chances early on. But they were so easy to play through.
So easy. Still in a job. Whew. Do you think it still will be by the weekend?
To be honest, a defeat like that's going to define you, isn't it? But look, let's be honest, Ralph Hasenhüttl really recovered after the Southampton-Leicester 9-0, didn't he?
He did.
And Southampton fans not happy, by the way. It was like 7-0 with like 20 minutes to go, wasn't it? Southampton fans were getting jiggy. Probably more jiggy than they've been watching their team over the last couple of weeks under Russell Martin, I should imagine, by the way. God, Sheffield United, they're really bad. They're really bad. And I also feel sorry for them. We discussed it a bit on our Patreon pod yesterday. Sheffield United and Luton they're not financially equipped to have come into this league at the moment. It's part of the problem. And there's some good little talented players there. McAtee's talent. Heyman's a good talent. Vinicius Souza, I don't think, has had the impact anybody wanted, but not going to score enough goals. And defensively, they cannot play like they played in that game yesterday. And then their heads went at the end. Make no mistake, this could have been more than 8-0. Mm-hmm. It really, really could have been. From a Newcastle perspective, really impressive. It should be noted that the first goal is obviously fortuitous in the sense that it hits Gordon's hand. It feels like one of them that, by the law, is the right decision to allow the goal to stand, but I feel like we all feel a bit awkward about it. Yep. Like, he's got a direct advantage because the ball has hit his hand, and 100% it's clearly accidental. It's one of them, I just wish there'd be a bit of, that landed straight in his path because it hit his hand and they've scored from it. And we use a bit of common sense rather than defining everything by physics, if you will. But from there, yeah, they fell apart in the build up to what leads to the third goal, which Botman's goal. Jack Robinson easily could have been sent off for his tackle. They were just so easy, so easy to play through. It's the easiest game Newcastle will have all season. That said, brilliant from them, ruthless. Trips, it speaks for itself in terms of what he is, what he can be for you. The reason to say no to Trips would be because of what you want to do with other transfers. Otherwise, crack on, be my guest. Botman, Share, Burn. It's Share, Botman, Burn in the order of how they're priced in terms of who's the better assets and stuff. It probably, again, it comes down to your other players rather than, like, I'd rather play for Share than pay for Botman. It will get close enough where if Botman hits 4.8, which I think he probably will this week, actually, then Share at 5.0 you should be getting, right, that's close enough. Share's better call now.
Yep.
You should pay the little extra. Anthony Gordon's really interesting. To be honest, because obviously Harvey Barnes went off injured early on, once he came on the pitch, that really, really lifted Newcastle, actually. Really direct and confident in his running. His goal was a brilliantly well-taken finish. He's 5'5", might be 5'6" now, Anthony Gordon. He is on 4 yellow cards. So there's just a caution on that. Is he a good asset with what Newcastle have got coming up fixture-wise and at his price that might be the difference that enables you something? Sure, for me right now, he would be a better call than, say, Douglas Luiz at this minute. But he's got 4 yellows and you also do have a little bit of a rotation risk as well. But if Barnes' injury is bad, that rotation issue might not be there in the same way. He won't want to use Almiron on the left wing. And at the moment, Joe Linton and Willock are still out. So Elliot Anderson is basically playing this left-sided midfield position. I did wonder if he might try Longstaff or Tonali in that position on Sunday. He didn't. So Anderson's another one at 4.4, where he's not going to stay in the team permanently, but he probably does for the next couple, probably till the international break, I should imagine. If it enables you something, again, consider it. It's gone from... I'm looking there now with no Newcastle. I've bought Botman, but you're going, geez... But they won't have it that easy again. Like, no. I don't think... They don't destroy Burnley. They'll beat Burnley at the weekend, I would think. They don't destroy them. No.
Well, what do you think on possession? Like, Burnley will probably still have a little bit more of the ball, maybe.
I would not be surprised if it's close possession-wise between the two. Extremely different challenge. And listen, if Burnley showed the defensive naiveties that they showed against Tottenham, then Newcastle can do really well again. On Wilson Isak... Most people were saying Wilson was going to play on Sunday. I didn't agree with that. Everybody else was right, not me. What it means for this coming week.
Shrug your shoulders, figure it out. Yeah.
Let's see what the team is against Man City and maybe decide afterwards. My guess would be at the moment, Isak, I guess, will play Man City, and you probably would think now that Wilson would play again against Burnley. Number of interesting options there. I think Gordon, Anderson, if it enables the right thing for you, and if you haven't got a defensive one, you probably are going to want to be thinking about it because there's others who've got one and now thinking, I want two.
Yep.
Well, look, it's Burnley at home. Is it yourselves away, I think?
Yes.
which is difficult. Then it's Palace at home, and there's a few good more ones after that before they play Arsenal, which I want to say is game week 11, I think.
Good. James, do you want to tell the listeners what they got to look forward to for the rest of the week? We've got a full jam-packed schedule. I will tell you all about how you can have more fun with fantasy by being one of our patrons straight after.
Obviously, TOTC already out from yesterday. Bournemouth Arsenal. It's a really good chat with Neil Grover and Adam Pritchard. Sky Fantasy tomorrow. Got another Clash of Correspondence Thursday. Luton Burnley ahead of the double. Dan Ashby, Jack Toner. And Friday, Lauren Harris is joining me for a preview of the Women's Super League that starts this weekend as well. Our patron podcasts this week include Q&A yesterday. Today, I'm doing a nice James stream for the guys at 5 o'clock, corrected time for patrons today. That's for basic tier plus patrons and above. Tomorrow, Tottenham. Thursday, Money in Football on Football Piracy. And Friday will be our Game Week 7 preview podcast. Nice.
A busy week of content ahead before the football at the weekend. Spread over 5 days, right? Because, no, there's no Friday game, is there? So spread over 4 days if you include the double...
No Friday.
Double game week day.
Yep.
Indeed. So make sure you are subscribed wherever you are listening to the podcast, and as soon as any of that additional content that James mentions is published, you will hear about it. That includes the notification bell, the thumbs up icon, and all of the other stuff that they allow you to do. If you want the additional content, then it's all about Patreon, patreon.com/Planet FPL, where you can join our Slack community, prize leagues, additional podcasts, and chat with other fantasy managers as well. Anything else to add?
No, I think that's
if you're watching, also just to be clear, like one of the new things on Patreon, if you're watching on YouTube and you prefer to have an ad-free experience, you can do that on Patreon now as well, can't you?
Because we publish. That's for all patrons, no ads on YouTube.
So. Yes, exactly. So if you get fed up with the skip ad button or the pop-ups or whatever it does, because I don't really use YouTube that much, you can get that ad-free as being a Patreon as well. Not time for questions, James, because we've been through the entire show, but unanswered cues is sometimes a show on Patreon.
I will answer them all for the advanced tier patrons later today.
Lovely jubbly. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Be nice to each other. Good luck. Cue music, please, man-child. Well, that flew by.
Is it 1:36? Yeah, the thing is, we were doing well.
And then I started talking too much about Tottenham?
Not really. I don't know how it flipped to longer, to be honest with you. I think we should try and figure out which games are longer than not. But
the ones of interest.
Well, yeah, we rattled through some of them quicker, which was good. So, right.